In 1975, producer and songwriter Kim Fowley came across the idea to start an all-girl rock band when he happened to simultaneously meet songwriter Carrie Crome, guitarist Joan Jett, and drummer Sandy West on separate occasions around the same time. While others were initially involved, the band would be rounded out by Lita Ford on lead guitar, Cherie Currie on lead vocals, and Jackie Fox on bass. The band recorded 4 studio albums and 1 live album, achieving most of their commercial success in Japan. Fox left the group during their tour in Japan due to mental health issues taking a toll, including a suicide attempt. After an intense fight with Ford over Currie's consistent tardiness and absence, Currie quit as well. Vicki Blue took over on bass, and Jett became the lead singer. Fowley gave up on the band at that point. He didn't think they could be successful without Currie. They still were. The producer of their 4th album, John Alcott, drove a wedge between the band. He liked Ford and West, but didn't like Jett and Blue. He refused to let Blue play on the album. Ford performed all of the bass parts. For the tour, Laurie McAllister was brought in to play bass. It was decided to dissolve the Runaways due to the divide that had occurred during the making of that last album. Curie wrote a memoir, Neon Angel, that was originally published in 1989. This book became the foundation of a biopic about the Runaways, with Jett as an executive producer. Floria Sigismondi was brought in to write and direct. The film focuses mostly on Currie, played by Dakota Fanning, and Jett, played by Kristen Stewart. It tells the formation of the band, leaving Chrome's involvement out, and ends with Currie quitting while briefly touching on Jett's successful solo career. And that is ultimately one of the film's biggest problems. It is not a movie about the Runaways. It is a movie about Cherie Currie and Joan Jett, which would be fine. I get it. It's hard to write a movie about 5 protagonists, and it can't be 3 hours long. It makes sense to focus on specific members. But then don't call it The Runaways. Call it Neon Angel, or Crimson and Clover, Cherie and Joan. Something like that, I don't know. And it goes beyond simply not focusing on the other members. They are treated with so little regard that they may as well not even exist. And according to the film, one of them doesn't. Fox is not in the film at all. While it was largely reported that Ford and Fox declined to be part of the film, what is left out is that Ford was only offered $1,000 for the rights to her life story, which was so insulting she pretty much ignored them. I am unclear if Fox was offered the same deal, but she became an entertainment lawyer after leaving the Runaways and attending Harvard. She could have caused a problem with the film, which chose to move forward despite not getting the rights from Ford and Fox. They were technically legally allowed to do that. But out of fear that she might halt the film, Jett attempted to sue Fox, and subsequently, Fox's name and likeness were removed from the script. The bass player is referred to as Robin Robbins. Jesus fucking Christ, how long do you think it took them to come up with that one? And I don't think she has a single line of dialogue. The message this sends is that Fox, Ford, and to a slightly lesser extent West, didn't matter to the Runaways. The people behind this movie didn't care. According to this movie, the Runaways only mattered thanks to 3 people: Currie, Jett, and Fowley, which frankly is kind of despicable. And it's only that way because they needed Currie because they were adapting her book, Jett because she's the most famous member and very easily could have stopped the film, and Fowley because he owned the publishing rights and they wanted to use the music. The Runaways were a band. To act like the contributions of the other 3 members didn't matter is ludicrous. The song that Currie's book is named after, Neon Angels on the Road to Ruin, that was written by Ford and Fox with Fowley. I'm not the biggest fan of Ford's solo material, but she's a great guitar player, and her leads were a major part of the alchemy that made the Runaways great, as was West's drumming and Fox's bass playing once they finally let her record. Fowley deemed her not good enough to play on the debut album, but she did play on Queens of Noise. For obvious reasons, the movie is biased towards the people directly involved. Currie is the only character given any nuance or depth. As Roger Ebert noted in his review, the script is weirdly underwritten. The film also changes things from the actual events to make Currie more sympathetic. She quits the band in the film in a moment of clarity in which she finally stands up to Fowley's abuse. As described in Ford's biography and the documentary Edge Play directed by Blue, what actually happened was Currie was 2 hours late to a photo session and then announced that she had to leave an hour early. Ford, who from all accounts had a bad temper, went off on Currie and told her that she had to pick between the band and her family. Ford claims that she was just talking about that specific day, but Currie read it as an ultimatum and bailed. But you can't really do that in this movie because 1, Currie's tardiness doesn't exactly make her look good, And two, if the movie ends with Curry leaving, you can't have that be a result of the conflict with Ford because the movie wants to pretend Ford doesn't matter. It's not satisfying as a movie if Curry quits after a blow up with Ford because Ford is a glorified extra in the movie. So it has to be either Jet or Fowley. And because I know a lot of this is bullshit to feed egos, I can't get invested in Curry the person or the fictional presentation. Jet is portrayed as pretty much flawless because she's an executive producer. The character is always just focused on her music, always has her head on straight, and never made a mistake ever. She doesn't come across as a person in the movie, but a brand and an icon. There's no humanity. Stewart is great in the part though. This was made at the height of Twilight and thus the Twilight backlash. People have been incredibly dismissive of Stewart ever since those movies, much more so than her male co-star. But she's really talented and fits this part perfectly. Fowley is a can of worms. The story of the Runaways is really quite tragic. It was 5 talented teenage girls being taken advantage of and abused. None of them got any money from it. Fowley kept it, which is alluded to in the film, but not dealt with. The film kind of takes the position that because Fowley was talented, and he was, it justifies his methods, which is a pervasive problem in the entertainment industry. It wasn't until Joss Whedon failed with the Justice League reshoots that the industry was finally willing to address his long history of on-set misconduct. But that's bull. Fowley did bad things, and the movie should have been more critical of him, but they can't because they needed him for the music. There's a lot of hand-waving of bad shit. Curry's relationship with their road manager, which resulted in a traumatic abortion, is brushed off as a joke. This guy was in his late 20s while Curry was underage. And that brings us to the most controversial part of the Runaways' history. In 2015, after Fowley's death, Fox accused him of rape. It was at a party and she was given drugs that left her defenseless and he raped her. There are witnesses who can and did attest to this event, although in the past, the band members said Fowley never did anything physical. It was all mental and emotional abuse. When Fox saw women coming forward to tell their stories of sexual assault during the Me Too movement, it encouraged her to tell her story. So, in retrospect, it is very difficult to watch a movie that tells the story of this band that erases Fox from history while not quite glorifying her rapist, but certainly not condemning him either. And sure, no one knew this story back when the film was made, but the band knew, and the film made it clear that they didn't care about Fox anyway. This is compounded by how dismissive Fox's bandmates have been of her, Ford especially, in the Edgeplay documentary. Ford just repeats over and over again that Fox quit because she wanted long fingernails and to wear high heels that didn't get caught in guitar cables before laughing off Fox's suicide attempt. It reads as especially cold now. Moving on from the heavy stuff, Ford and West are both portrayed as one-dimensional. West is just cute and sweet, while Ford is a one-note bitch. No nuance or depth for either. I will say I do like Scout Taylor Compton as Ford. She captures the stage presence well, and what few lines she does get, she delivers well. I would not mind seeing a Lita Ford movie with Compton reprising the role, especially after reading Ford's book. Since I've been whining this entire video, it's probably time to say some nice things. Apparently, the film was shot on 16mm. That was a cool choice. I like the cinematography a lot. And I like that the actresses all learned their respective instruments, and that Fanning and Stewart actually sang the songs. Some people feel weird about this. They'd rather just hear the original versions. For me, that often feels unnatural. Like it's always really clear that the singing voice doesn't match the speaking voice. I think it's better for the film for the actors to sing, even if musically it isn't as good as the originals. I also like that the movie betrays them as not very good at first. Like during her audition, Cherie is not even remotely in time, and they're all just sort of loud and obnoxious at first. That's a nice little detail. The film's distribution went under right before release, resulting in a limited theatrical run that began on March 19th, 2010. I actually did see it in theaters. Made for $10 million, the film only grossed $4.6 million worldwide and received lukewarm to positive reviews. I think the movie didn't find an audience largely because of Stewart. The Twilight audience probably doesn't care about the Runaways and couldn't see this movie anyway because it's rated R. And Runaways or even general rock fans were probably turned off by her involvement. God forbid the Twilight girl be in this. Did they think they were going to catch vampire cooties or something? As for what I think, fuck this movie. Just as a movie on its own, taking the real life element out, it's okay at best. The script is weak with one-dimensional flat characters. What helps the movie is great performances, kick-ass music, and solid direction. But it is a mostly flat and dull experience. Knowing the story of this band and being a fan, this movie drives me up a wall. I find the blatant disrespect towards Ford, West, Blue, McAllister, and especially Fox to be gross, and that's me being nice about it. This movie is a bland, sugar-coated version of events that is more interested in satisfying the egos of specific people than taking an honest look at this band, warts and all, that could have made for an incredibly compelling film or miniseries.